Welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers. This is episode 4. What is a community manager? It's more than what the title suggests. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Sandoval. In this episode, Chris Deltzel and I get a little self-reflective on what a community manager does on a daily basis. We start the conversation by asking this very question to ourselves. As the discussion continues, we learn that our sphere of influence is more than just the communities we manage. We help an online customer make their journey through our respective site's experience. Over time, we truly become the customer's advocate within the enterprise. Dare I say, an online sales professional? We hope you join in on our conversation and listen through the very end. It's turning out to be one of my favorites. This podcast starts now. So we're talking about this idea of community manager.
Yep.
And I have a problem with the word community manager.
Yeah,
It sounds very linear.
Yeah.
So in your day-to-day job, are you just doing community stuff?
I don't know. I think that my daily job is community manager, but as I think of what I do is more than just operational, right? I look at the strategic view. I head up the vendor selection. I head up, the operational piece. I head up, building relationships internally to get them to do some shit. People that are answering questions. I've got to find those experts. I've got to do a lot of things, and I wonder if community manager is really the right title.
To give some context, right? So
Yep.
we were talking about career, right? And I'm sure some of those folks are out there listening, right? So it seems very well defined when you first start off to be a community manager, maybe senior community manager. Remember the things like head community manager. I even see the word head community manager. I've seen the words global community manager, head of developer community. I mean, I've seen all these terms, right, to kind of give you some context. But there's always this term community, right? And you and I have had many conversations about the word. Do people even understand what the word community means?
Not really.
And not really, I agree. It's a word that we use and we understand, but when you go talk to those who don't, they kind of like I can feel their eyes roll because they don't understand it, right? What is it that you do? And then you have to explain, so what do you do, right? And it's just a very difficult thing to describe. So that's one piece, right? There's this other piece. But then the one thing we're getting around is this idea of experience, right? Customer experience. And I've seen it a lot too.
You keep bringing it about customer experience. This is interesting.
I don't know if it's just because of things I've been seeing recently, because customer experience is also a very broad term. It also describes user experience, customer journey, which doesn't apply. Some of that applies, but there are some aspects that are not what we would consider community-centric, what you and I would term community, right? User experience and how people buy something online is not necessarily our bread and butter, right? That's another person's problem, another person in the company's problem. But I do see this higher ability of how does a customer go through the journey?
Yep, I agree.
How do they get the support? Why, when they're in the process of buying your product, at what point? And I actually feel that that's how do we help them? And I see this as almost like you go into the old Best Buy and somebody asks you what kind of computer you're looking for, and they're kind of guiding you through the process, right?
Hey, by the way, I worked at Best Buy as a computer or a lead in the computer department, and so that's exactly what I did.
Well, there you go.
What are you looking for? What are you trying to do?
But there are, but I see that advocate, right? You're that advocate, right? How do you get them to the right person? How do you ask that right question?
Yeah.
And it's not just the community piece, right? It's not just the forms or whatever. So, back when we worked together, we had, there was some live chat stuff. There was even some of the range reviews pieces that we did. It was about helping them at the full aspect of their journey, right? But that created a very nice customer experience, right? So it's almost like there's levels.
Before you kind of continue on to that, we should at least kind of talk about, when we were at Excel, we did more than just community, right? Is we
Yeah.
really developed the strategic vision for ratings and reviews for the e-commerce sites within several countries. We also looked at live chat and how people can get help
Yep.
live,
Yep.
from a live chat standpoint. And
Yep.
we developed the strategy that for several countries, 10, 12 countries.
Yep.
And then, so, those, it's interesting that you brought that up. It's because I think those three things have a lot in common, in a sense, right? When you think of help, when you think of people looking to buy the right products, when you look at, questions around specific products or specific things, when it comes to community and peer-to-peer networking, et cetera. So I think that, those three things went hand in hand, but we did more than just community, right? And so we know and understand kind of when we look at the journey experience. et
Yeah,
cetera.
remember we had this lovely little graph, right, that talked about where you are in your purchase cycle. Like, I don't know anything about the product I need, to I know exactly the product I need,
Yeah.
versus where you were in, I'm just researching, to I need to buy now. Like, there was the two lines. And then we said, oh, where does community play in that role, right?
Yeah.
So we said, hey, when you have time and you're in the research side, you may use community to understand, hey, there are people who have my problem, they've recommended these particular products. You're actually asking these questions like, what type of
Yeah, it was kind of like through the journey of the purchasing cycle. like-
fuse,
like
right?
you
Exactly,
mentioned,
correct,
right?
yeah.
So,
And then when they got closer to understanding, they would say, I need some more peer-to-peer examples. This is more of the recommendation side. Did you actually use this?
Yeah.
What did you think about this one product that I have given some data around?
yeah,
And then when it came down to purchase, it was the transactional piece, like, do you have this in stock? This is live chat, right? Do you have this available? Can I have it? That kind of piece, right? So there was this, and that's why I call about the experience, right? Because we own that entire experience. We own the,
yeah, because I remember you saying, and pushing that into my mind is, community is kind of like, they search for some, maybe a particular product or products on Google. They come to community, they see some stuff on community, questions, answers, and things like that. And then our goal from a community standpoint was to send them to specific products on the e-commerce sites. And then on the e-commerce sites, they would see ratings and reviews on a specific product. So customers would say, so this is kind of in the middle. So community was in the beginning, ratings and reviews was in the middle, and then live chat was at the end, basically. So, at their end of their buying cycle, they're like, hey, I just need to know how much this is, or, a lot of different, specifics kind of at the end, and then boom, you can get them to buy.
yeah,
I
so
don't know.
if you were to draw a picture, you would say, like a funnel,
Yep.
you would say, I'm going to use the knowledge of my peers, then I'm going to use the knowledge of those who've manufactured, and then I want to get down to the individual, like, one-to-one conversation of, is this available? Is this in stock? Do you have it?
Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like
Exactly.
you're
So
narrowing
there you go.
down
Yeah, you say it way
broad
better than I do, but yeah.
to individual. And so if a company doesn't have that level of, if they don't have those stair steps, I mean, they're missing something in the experience.
Exactly.
Right. So this is going back again. That's why I keep going back to the experience. Like, how do you lead a customer through the purchase cycle?
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I keep thinking, again, this is the beginning of our conversation was around what is one's role, or how do you progress in your role as a community manager?
He's bringing the spec around because I completely missed it. I was like, what were we talking about in the beginning? I'm like, shit,
no,
I don't fucking remember.
No, this is good, right? Because, in a sense, because who are we, right? So I never
Yeah.
saying the
Who
word
are we?
community never really said who we are.
It's funny that you said that because I look at my role at Rexel. If I just said community manager, that's not what I did.
I
You know?
agree. It's not what I did.
And I was like, I struggled, because I implemented community in 3 countries. We implemented in 3 countries. We implemented ratings and reviews. We used a company called Bazaar Voice in like 10 countries. We used Live Person, which is the company, to use live chat
Yep.
and live engage to in like 12 or 15 countries. We trained, we found people to be, to be helpful within marketing, within support, within a lot of different areas. And I'm like, that's not a community manager.
I agree.
I don't know what the hell that is. We did some crazy, amazing shit. And
I agree.
how do I explain that to people? I
It's a
decided
white paper story, in my opinion.
we should
That's another
write we should write some blogs around this stuff too,
conversation.
right?
Or do a podcast. I don't know.
Podcast blogs. I don't know. I agree. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, what is my role at Rexel? What was it? You have it as, when I look at your LinkedIn, I think director of social commerce or something like
Yeah,
that.
to give credit to Devishish, my boss.
Yeah.
we were battling the same thing. Who are we, right?
Yeah.
So there were two pieces of this conversation. One was, at the end of the day, and he's one of my mentors, is this idea that the closer you are to money, I should say, in a company, the more attention you will get. So
Yeah.
this idea, the closer you are to the transaction. So this e-commerce part played into it. The second piece was around, it's around social, right? It's
Yeah.
around how do you activate your customers to engage with your brand? That's a social piece. So that's where social e-commerce, I use that as a term, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily the right term because that doesn't exist anywhere. Another gentleman that we
Exactly. It doesn't.
yeah, no,
exist.
it does, but at least that's close. Another gentleman we'll talk to eventually is Blake Etheridge, right?
Etheridge. I have a conversation with him in November. It's gonna be
Great guy.
awesome.
He used to
week
work
or
with me
two.
as well, and
I'm looking forward to
he's a
talking
good,
to that guy.
yeah, he's a good guy.
'Cause he knows you.
He's a great guy.
I should invite you to that conversation.
Well, you should have your own private conversation. It's a good one. But he talks a word about growth marketing, right? Which is interesting, right? It's maybe another
Okay.
concept, right? But this is really coming down to a conundrum. The one that I get very close to is around customer experience, and I still don't like it only because it gets so tied up with user experience.
That's right.
The very tactical piece about getting a customer through the purchase cycle. But I'm looking at it as a support. How do I look at the experience of a customer coming in and then guiding them through the right process, guiding them through the right product. And along the way, you're gonna need some help. And here are some of those tactics in the help. One of them is being this thing we call, quote unquote, the community, the forum.
Yeah, that's
That's just, again, that's, to use my term, that's a tactic, not a strategy, but it's a tactic that's out there, right? You can use to get them through that process. And the community is in a different phases of your support. It could be in the
It's funny, though.
pre-sale or in the post-sale. It's funny though, go ahead.
no, I agree with that 100%. So post-sale but what's funny is that you describe community as a tactic. So what's interesting and what's mind-blowing to me is that you can have a community, let's call it a community manager, right? That runs community, that has to have their own strategy and roadmap to drive that community, right? But when you think of customer experience, community is just one of many tactics.
I agree.
That drives the customer experience. So
That's correct.
I'm so goddamn confused. I get what you're saying, but it blows my mind.
No, but this is,
dude.
again, this is me just, I'm brainstorming and thinking about, and if others have opinions, please say so, but what is the natural, this is going back to, what is the natural progression of one's career within the community sphere? I've been, so to kind of give a context of myself, I've been very lucky to kind of maybe reach the ceiling, if you will, in that regard. So where do I go from here, right?
Dude, you can go anywhere.
Okay, sorry.
Here's the thing. It's like something I tell people all the time is that so let's go back to something personal for me is I love to run one of my big things is I run a lot of
Oh, yes, you do like to run, yeah.
half
A lot.
marathons and things like that. And I'll try to bring this back around to kind of what we're talking
And
about.
your wife does these crazy 100-milers.
My wife does 100 milers, 50 milers.
Oh, my God.
Today, for the last year and a half or so, she's been focused on the marathon and things like that. And so she'll go back and then probably in the next 5 or 6 months into the 50, 100 to 100 milers. Anyways,
And by the way, your cap says Blaze Trails Running.
yeah, I have a cap on that. So I love trail running, but I also love, and generally that's maybe at 30K, which is close to 20 miles.
That's 30K more than I've run.
Well, anyways,
Go ahead.
So I've been in the running community for about 6 or 7 years, and I've built a very strong community of friendships and people that really know their shit. And over time, I've really started to believe that I know my shit in a big way. And the problem with runners is that, or the big thing with runners is that we have goals, and so it's good. So, like for example, I want to run a half marathon in January 2020 at a 1:30 pace. So, which is about a 6:45 mile a pace, right? Which is really fast, but it's my goal. I have confidence that I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. If I train right, if I do the right things, I'm going to, I'm going to make it happen. So the things that I tell runners is, and I think that at least 60%, maybe more, I just made that number up, but still, a big piece of that is the confidence that you have. And so I think that as you have to have confidence that you can hit that goal. So I know that I can hit the goal, but I have to train, I have to do these right things, and even if I don't hit it, I know that I can hit it. It's going to happen. So I think to bring this kind of around is that as community managers, we have to be confident in who we are and know who we are as a person, not just as a person, but that we've done this before, that we've built communities before, that we've done these things, that we can do it. So when I look at you, Michael, I think that you're brilliant in the strategic, in building a strategic vision and building and building people up and helping people understand who they are as a person and what they can do in an organization. You help me in a big way. So I believe that you're not just a community manager, you're not just a community director. You have a lot of insights and strategic vision, and I believe in the customer experience and the big things. So I think that, if you believe in yourself and you truly have that confidence, it's like this, is that I'll give you one example or a couple examples of the running piece. So several times have I run a 1:35 pace, right? Like I've run a 1:35 half marathon several times.
And what does that mean for like mile?
So per mile, that's probably a 7:10, 7:15 mile, I forget.
Okay,
So,
all right.
I've run that. So I'm very confident in that I can do it. What I'm not confident in is that I can do a 1:30, right? So I've been close. I've hit a 1:31 or whatever, right? But it's the same thing is once I overcome that and I hit it once or twice, I'm going to be fucking confident that I can do that every time. And then my next goal will be 125, right? So I think that as us so that's a personal
aspect,
thing.
yeah.
It's a personal thing. I can do it. But what if I put that into my goal
Work life?
in my work life? Dude, I'm more than a fucking community manager. I can become a C-level whatever. I believe, Michael, that you have that. And I'm not just kissing your ass, dude.
No, we've had this
I
conversation
believe-
before. No,
I truly believe that, when you look at your vision, so when we were at Rexel, people were fucking, like, it could have been the data guy, the data director, the UI, UX director, the whoever. Those people are coming to you first. They were never coming to the VP of e-commerce because you were there. They knew you have insights on all of those things. So my point is, you have confidence in yourself and in your abilities, and you can do it.
To kind of pull this in, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
Of course, it's true though.
Thanks. Thanks. What, so, I, what, 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 around this idea of, so so part of that was around, for those who don't know, I'm thinking about myself, like where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Right. For those who know me, you've kind of reached a moment in your career where you're like, well, where does community go from here, right? And so part of this is around. Again, I keep toying this idea in my head, and I could be wrong, but this idea of customer experience or whatever that may be, but this idea of the larger term, but it could be this around just overall experience of the customer coming to our site, e-commerce. Pulling back a little bit further, I agree, we do not. Doing the community piece is just a very, again, using that term, tactical piece. But really what happens is we get deep into understanding our value. What happens is our value becomes higher because we understand what the customer's doing.
Right.
We understand where they're going.
Yep.
We understand what they need. We become almost intimate with understanding them so much that even those who are looking to get customer data will come to us because, hey, we've heard that you've been using the community, or they've come to you and they've asked some questions. Can you give us some insight about what the customer is doing? You just you start to build this customer trove of information. No one else in the company has that same level of understanding. Maybe the salesperson, but that's on the offline world. Maybe in some way we're the sales guys in the online world, having this level of intimate data with a customer that folks don't have.
I think you brought this to a great point is that, data and bringing insights from that data is highly important to the organization.
Yeah, so almost going back to what we were talking about, we had some things that are not necessarily community-centric, but like the ratings and piece and the live chat stuff. Even on live chat, we would took those questions that folks were asking, and we would put that back into the community, right, as Q&A.
I sure the hell did.
Yes, you did, right? So there was a circular environment about, okay.
In Germany, remember?
Yeah.
Marion, yeah, she was.
Yeah, our good friend Mary. So it was a circular environment about how we took content that was coming in and push it back, and in a sense what you're taking is information that came in at the backside, the backside of a sale, and then putting it to the front side of the sale, right? Using the community as a way to kind of prevent the question, right? This is going back to this idea of case deflection, which is another conversation, right? This idea of how do I get a customer to self-serve themselves, right? Using the community. But again, kind of the theme of the conversation is how do you, I still have a problem with the word community manager.
Yeah.
It's just me.
I'm starting to become the same way as I think community manager means a lot of things, and as you kind of look at job descriptions and things like that.
Customer advocate, experience. I don't know what that is, and it still seems very too tactical for me. And I think in my journey, so I appreciate the comments, but in my journey, you almost want, someone in charge of an organization that knows the customer so intimately that they can almost pinpoint exactly where the problem is.
Yeah.
And look at it with such a fine-tooth piece and say, this is the piece we need to go solve.
Yep.
And I have very good data to tell you why. And I know personally I can do that. That's just what we do, right? That's.
I love this. And so, kind of conclude this particular podcast. I'm going to take a picture of Michael and I. I'm going to post it on.
I'm eating a piece of salami, by the way.
It's fine. I won't take it yet, but
No, it's good.
I'll definitely post it on LinkedIn and Twitter just to kind of recap some of the things we talked about today. So,
Yeah, very good.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it. Until next time.
Till next time.
Cheers.